Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest on the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to Apply. All right, so today is a special episode. We're bringing back Rosemary Bova. I'm so excited and thrilled to announce that our book is finally live. We've been working on it for a long time. We'll be talking about the book, of course. We'll also get into Bova Enterprises as well, which is Rosemary's business. But before we do that, we'll start this episode the way that we start them all. And I just got to say, hey, Rosemary, welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I'm really excited to be here today, Adam.
Yeah, I'm excited as well. And I know you know the drill. We're going to start with that Mission Matters minute. So, Rosemary, we at Mission Matters, we amplify stories for entrepreneurs, executives, and experts. That's our mission. Rosemary, what mission matters to you?
I think the mission that matters most to me is transforming people's experience in the workplace. We spend so much time at work and we're all goal directed. And that experience has to be positive. People have to feel valued, appreciated, and paid, an appropriate wage. But I get very concerned that our companies are not experiencing engaged workforces. So
Yeah.
I want workers to feel engaged and excited about what they do.
Mhm. So great to have you back and love bringing mission based individuals on the line to share their mission, why they do what they do, their purpose, and really so we can all learn and grow together. So, first off, just to kind of get us warmed up here, I don't want to assume that all of our new listeners and viewers maybe caught some of the previous work we've done with each other. So, maybe start off a little bit more about your background and really how you got in business.
I come from a back, actually, I can go really far back. I come from a working class background. My father had a small business, and so small business was always in our family dinner time conversation. And I grew up when things were roles were not all that available for women.
Mhm.
So you had to navigate if you didn't want to just go to college and get married and have children, but you wanted a career. You really had to navigate and find your way. I just heard this morning somebody mentioned that in the 70s, women couldn't even have their own bank account. Just
Wow.
really, without their husband or their father signing for them. I mean, it's really kind of
That's not that long ago either when
not
we think
that
about
long
it.
ago in the
Shocking.
scheme of things, in the
Mhm.
in the thousands of years that the world has been functioning. I mean, it's like God in the 70s. So
Wow.
that being said, I must have changed my area of studies in college 4 or 5 times. And
Mhm.
when I got out, I was a labor economics major, and I went to down to Wall Street to try to get jobs, and these people looked at me as if I was crazy. So I mean, and that kind of pivoted me into what was social work.
Yeah.
And I went from social work into corporate work, into being an executive director of a small agency,
Mhm.
providing services to school systems. But then I wanted to the big picture. I really was looking for what's available in the corporate world. And it
Mhm.
was hard to go from not for profit into corporate work because people in corporate work did value not for profit work at that time. It's very different now. It's
Yeah.
really very different. The world has changed so dramatically. And so I went into corporate work, and then I decided, you know what? I need to be on my own. I too principled and perhaps opinionated in a certain way. I have my beliefs, and my integrity is very important to me. So I decided to start my own business, and here we are. So I've had ups and downs and all arounds, and it's been a great journey. I have to say, it's been a wonderful journey.
Yeah, and I know as we've gotten to know each other, I know where your heart really is, and especially helping business owners. And when I think about what you're doing at B Enterprises, really, and like how you're looking to make a difference, we'll circle back to that. But and I do want to go further into your business, but I want to jump around a bit, and I want to dive into this book and to the content because I'm
Mhm.
just excited. We've been working on it for a long time. It's finally out. It's finally live. So your contribution to the book, The Power of Four, Four Elements to Reclaim Your Work Life. What was the inspiration for this topic?
I think the inspiration was really had a lot to do with my weaving together my own experience in the business community, in the world of work. I started out and everything was focused on behavior. And then I was introduced to a person who became my mentor, Dr. Elliot Jacks, and his emphasis was that structure affects behavior. And so I kind of let go of everything I knew and dove into this whole area of what was called requisite organization. I've stepped away from that and then realizing now that it's really not it's a both and. It's not an either or, it's a both and I think this power of four is my way of creating a new tapestry, a new way of thinking and I don't like the word empower.
Mm-hmm.
It just, I don't like that word, but I haven't found a new word yet. So people need to be re-energized in the business community. And I think these four elements will be different for every person. So what your four elements will be, or the degree that you emphasize each element will be different than mine, would be different than, another person's.
Yeah. And so I'll highlight the four elements just so everybody listening and watching this has kind of the bird's eye view on this. But just to let everybody know, we're gonna go into one or two. We'll have some time on this, but we're not gonna give them all to you today because why? Because hey, I still want you to buy a copy of the book. I'm a publisher, right? like we sell books around here too. We give a lot of free content out too, but definitely want you to pick up a copy of this. But the four elements are: element one, differentiating management and self-management. Element two, understanding task management. Element three, self-knowledge. Element four, self-care. So one that stuck out to me in the book, well, all of them did, but I wanted to kind of elaborate and highlight on one because I want you to go further with it. Element three, self-knowledge. I feel like this topic does not get enough media attention. So tell us more about your concept of it.
Well, I think it's essential that everybody knows who they are
Mm-hmm.
when they go to work.
And that's the obvious, but when I read it, it hit me. I'm like, huh. Go ahead, continue.
So what the gift that the pandemic gave us,
Mm-hmm.
because you could look at the pandemic and think of all the negativity and the horror and the bad things that happened, and there are a lot of that, but you have to look at the positivity of what did it encourage in us. And I think it enabled people to understand that they were on like a treadmill, and they were just running but didn't know where they were going, but running for the sake of running, not for the sake of realizing a goal or an aspiration.
Mm.
And so I think there was a real rude awakening for a lot of people to recognize that what they were doing was not feeding their soul.
Mm.
What they were doing was not, I mean, work, everybody's work doesn't have to really feed their soul fully. But at least if you know what you're doing and you have another alternative, like say some volunteer work that you want to do that really feeds your soul, then you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And what happens is that so many people are so unconscious.
Mhm.
They're just not conscious of who they are and what's important to them, and they find that out too late.
Mhm.
I mean, it affects, not knowing who you are affects your entirety. It affects not only your work life, but it affects your personal life.
Mhm.
People are divorced. They don't have relationships. They
Mhm.
don't have, I mean, their children are getting in trouble It's so I think it's very, very important to know yourself. And there are a lot of different ways to know yourself. There's a lot that's out there, some of which is better than others.
Mm-hmm.
But I tend to believe that it's really important to, like, what I use the disc instrument as a vehicle to get to know my clients at the beginning. But once my clients know me, they recognize they recognize my authenticity, and
Mm-hmm.
there's a trust built. It's kind of like we have built a trust together.
Mm-hmm.
And when people trust you, they will become vulnerable to you. They will ask for help rather than just mouthing all the words and really not meaning anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
So self-knowledge becomes very, very important. And it's also important to know how your behavior affects another person. And most
So
people are not sharing that.
and I know that there's no, there's no one size fits all, right? There's going to
Right.
be different individuals, different backgrounds, different, histories. I mean, infinite variations, right? We're humans, so
Yes,
no one size fits all
absolutely.
there. And this is one of the things, and I definitely do struggle at times with self-knowledge and kind of that reassessment and just thinking about, I don't know who said it, was it Stephen Covey or somebody saying, is your ladder on the right wall that you're climbing, right? Or whatever you're trying to do. Like, I struggle with that to this day. And it's one of those things where I always reset, and when I'm working with our team internally and otherwise, like, hey, are we having you do the right things that make you feel fulfilled and that you want to do? So these are
Mhm.
conversations we try to have pretty consistently.
Yes.
So I guess my question to you would be, is there any like tips along the way that you've learned about how to, like, if you're struggling with that, to maybe get a little bit further on your path to learning yourself and through self-knowledge, whether it's something that you've experienced or something that you've worked with your clients on?
Well, other than using an instrument, because instruments can help you to identify a specific aspect of self-knowledge.
Hmm.
But if we step away from using an instrument, you can really think about what's important to you.
Hmm.
You know, I'm a believer in writing lists.
Yeah.
So you can, have like a task for yourself for the week.
Hmm.
And you could start off by just saying, like, what's important for me today? What's important in my life today?
Mhm.
And just it's helpful to actually sit quietly and write that down. So you can actually have a timer, those little egg timers. You could give
Yeah.
yourself 3 minutes. You'd be surprised how long 3 minutes is.
It's so long.
It's a long time. So if you sit down quietly with something like an egg timer and
Mhm.
you write whatever comes to your mind, you'd be surprised at the end of the 3 minutes what might have come out. Because
Mm.
oftentimes that's a way of tuning into the self-conscious, particularly if
Mhm.
you write everything that comes to your mind.
Yeah.
I have to go to the dry cleaner, for example. You're writing down very quickly. That gives you information about you. And
Mhm.
if you do that like 5 days in a row, and
Yeah.
then on Saturday morning, look at all these pieces of paper that you've written on,
Mm.
you're going to get a little bit more information because you're actually tuning into your self-conscious, and
Mhm.
it's telling you a little bit about who you are and maybe what's important. Now, the
Mm.
thing with self-knowledge is that sometimes when you learn more about yourself, you realize you might be in the wrong job.
Mm.
And so that, I think, there are a lot of people avoid self-knowledge because they're afraid that they
Been
might.
there, done that. I'll pick on myself. Been there, done that. I'm human.
So have I mean, it's like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
But if you know that, you can manage that process.
Mm.
You can say, well, wait a minute, okay, is there some way that I can bring whatever it is into my current work? Or, I'm a believer that no one should be in a job
Mhm.
that they really don't like. You know what I mean? It's like, I remember having a group a number of years ago, and there was a guy in the group. There must have been about 6 or 7 people, and they were talking about careers. And this guy said, "Well, I always dreamed of being a policeman."
Hmm.
And he was young. I mean, he was in his 20s. And I said, "Well, why aren't you?" He said, "Well, my family didn't want me to do this." And he had all these
Yeah.
reasons. And I said, "Well, you're in an insurance company. You really should think about this a bit more."
Hmm.
We fast forward a couple of months, he became a policeman.
Wow.
I never, and I remember his boss coming over to me and said, "Why did you, weed him out of the company?" I said, "Why would you want somebody here
Yeah.
who didn't want to be here?"
Hmm.
It doesn't. I mean, I'm a believer that people should do that which they can be totally engaged in. So,
Yeah. It's great and it's fun to hear those type of stories for me because like, as I said, we all want to be connected on some level. So to hear that like if there's other people that are watching this or listening to this and they're in that situation or they've been in it, like that's part of our, our connection, that shared experience.
mhm,
Um,
absolutely.
so I wanna let's pull out another point here as well from specifically from the book.
Okay.
So understanding task management. So a lot of business owners, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of executives that watch this, and I feel like it's something that many of us struggle with. I'll pick up myself again. There, task management's not always the easiest. We all have so many things we want to get done and we want aspirations and ideas but only so much time to get them done, right? So tell us a little bit more about your views on this side.
So what I've done in the book is tweak a formula that Dr. Jacks had written, and it's the completion time of a task is based on the quality and quantity of 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 the task of what's got to be done to complete the task, and the time and the resources.
Hmm.
So, oftentimes we as managers know that task so well
Hmm.
that we kind of assume that the person that we're assigning the task to is going to just get it really quickly. And generally that's not going to happen. So oftentimes, and this has to do with structural work, but oftentimes managers are, in 2 layers above their workers.
Hmm.
And so they're talking a different language. And what I have noticed is that most workers do not ask. They're inhibited about
Mhm.
asking for more clarity as to what is expected of them. So putting this formula in the book
Mhm.
is my attempt to create less space
Yeah.
between the manager and the employee. So that if the manager says, "Adam, I'd like you to do XYZ, and you'll have, 2 months to do this."
Yeah.
And the employee says, "What? Well, what specifically is XYZ? How do I have to come back to you every time I do a piece of this
Hmm.
and tell you how I'm doing it? And then you tell me I can go ahead and do the next segment?
Mhm.
Or are you giving me 2 months to just do the job? And then I'll come back to you in 2 months' time. And if I've done it wrong, my head will be on the chopping block, basically. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? So you really want to create an opportunity for dialogue between the worker and the manager here.
Hmm.
And, if there's a supervisor in between, because supervisors can sometimes assign tasks, but they don't really they're really more helpers to managers. They're not
Mhm.
really managing people. They're kind of supporters of the manager. So you need to then get either the supervisor or you yourself and the supervisor to talk to the manager to get the clarity.
Hmm.
So it becomes it's really essential for people to understand what is expected of them. And what I have found is that most employees really want that specificity.
Hmm.
They really want they want to know what you really are expecting of me. And if they don't feel that they can speak to the manager, if they don't feel that there's some kind of connection, they're really not going to, they're going to be afraid to give it their all. And my experience, I've had this experience, is that the manager subordinate experience, the
Hmm.
relationship, can be one of the most satisfying relationships you can have in your life experience. It's
Hmm.
wonderful when the manager is really working with you to help develop you,
Hmm.
and you're doing, you're actually even helping the manager to grow in your own way.
Hmm.
So it becomes a very, and I don't think we have many of those relationships
Yeah.
today in business.
Yeah, I think it's changed. I see exactly what you're saying, how those relationships work. And to me, I think some of this, and not picking on the current economy, by the way, and the way that it's, but when we think about a lot of, let's just say, the old concepts or the previous concepts of maybe being at a job for 30 years and retiring. And I feel like many people have maybe used that as an excuse in the past. But
Mhm.
in my end of things, I've seen organizations that work, well, our organization, I mean, we have quite a bit of freelance writers. They're not, day-to-day employees, but
Right.
we have freelance writers we've been working with since 2019.
Yes.
The designer of our book, she's been with us since the very first book. Some of the editors, some other people. So we have amazing long-term relationships with individuals that I find very gratifying. I believe they do as well. Why they
Mhm.
stick around, right?
Of course.
But so I think that old paradigm, like, we can have it in today's marketplace. Like, to me, there's no excuses. Like, if a leader, if a manager, if whatever title we want to give them, right, if they want to step up to the challenge, like, there's room for growth, and there's always room for growth, is what I think.
Oh, well, I always think there's room for growth, but
Yeah.
I think the new paradigm is that companies are using independent contributors
Hmm.
to replace employees.
Hmm.
And I think that will work. I mean, I think it works in certain businesses.
Yeah.
I think this gets into kind of more heady stuff, but I think when you have businesses that have prevented people from, for example, taking off for maternity or paternity leave,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that affects the whole culture, not the business culture, the whole
Hmm.
the company, the
Of course,
country
of
as a whole.
course. Hmm.
Do you know what I mean? So I think that, when people, there's been so much fear, and a lot of it is, I don't think is valid. I mean, for some reason people are afraid to speak up. I don't know, I never had that problem. Even when I was in corporate America,
Yeah.
I had a vice president, a senior vice president, who would sign people up for my programs and then pull them out at the last minute.
Mm.
And I went into him one day, and I said to him, his name was Tom Gorman. I'll never forget this. And I said, can we speak? And he said, of course, Rosemary. I said, can we close the door? He said, okay. And I said, listen, I'm a professional, and I respect your work. He was in sales. I said, "And I would hope that you respect my work." I
Hmm.
said, but when you sign people up and then pull them out
Yeah.
of the class, it affects the whole dynamics of the class. I mean, it sends the wrong tone.
Mm.
And he sat there and listened to me, and he said, it won't happen again.
Mm.
And sure enough, it never did happen again.
Mhm.
And then I want to say months later, he sent his wife to me for career counseling. Uh, And it
Wow.
was so interesting, but it was like he understood, but nobody speaks to people because
Hmm.
people, I don't know
So,
why I wasn't afraid to speak to people. But in my corporate experience, I spoke to a lot of senior executives,
mhm.
and very candidly and respectfully. I mean, it's like you don't yell and scream. I mean, you're acting respectfully, but
Yeah.
It's funny because I don't think that's happening in today's world very much.
So speaking up, Rosemary, I got to bring this up a little, and just for everybody watching this, like where we're still definitely early stages production, and we definitely haven't, like, we're very preliminary, but I believe that you may be working on some more content with us, and you may be doing a whole lot more speaking. Do you care to comment on that at all today, just a little bit?
Yeah, I'm very, very excited to step into this new role of,
Yeah,
being a podcaster. I
yeah.
guess. I mean, it's
Yes, you are, and I'm excited too. I know it's still very new, but I'm thrilled. So for context, as we've worked with Rosemary and we've gone through and evaluated her writing, her business, just like her beliefs, and just the content she's putting out. Like, we're thrilled to offer an invitation to be on our podcast network, which she graciously accepted.
Mhm.
And now we're in the production stages of getting her show launched, but you'll be able to hopefully hear Rosemary's show very, very soon. Again, very early in production, but her show should be coming out very, very soon, hopefully on the podcast network, and that'll be everywhere. So Apple, Spotify, 30 plus channels, our website, missionmatters.com. I had to make it real. It's real when you tell the world, right, Rosemary?
It's real when you tell the world, and I can't tell you. I mean, I am so excited about this,
Mhm.
and yeah, because I've been telling a lot of people myself, and I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm doing this all based on trust.
Mhm.
I love the Mission Matters. We amplify stories, and I say to myself, Rosemary, you really have a lot to say, and actually, from interviewing people throughout my career, when I am consulting, I think I'm a pretty good interviewer. And people have always said to me, I didn't expect to say that. I don't know why I said that to you, but and I think it has to do with the authenticity. The
Mhm.
authenticity and transparency comes through. And I think that's why you and I connect, why
Mhm.
I've said so much, in our conversations, Adam. So I'm excited. I'm really
Yeah.
thrilled. So
I'm thrilled as well, and we won't leave everybody else hanging on that. We'll cut that piece for now there, but look out very soon. And if you're on Rosemary's newsletter, like I am and a fan of, you'll get that announcement too, and we'll be announcing it and doing a bunch of promo around it as well. So
mhm,
you're definitely going to hear it or hear about this.
yeah.
So I want to spend some of the minutes we have left here, and I want you to maybe talk a little bit about B Enterprises and really how you're working with businesses.
Okay. So B is for Bova Enterprises.
Mhm.
And, we've evolved over the years. And what my real specialty is, it really has to do with building organizations that have structural integrity.
Mhm.
And you can work very differently. There are ways to enter into a work system, and these are for large scale work systems. I'm not
Mhm.
talking about small little businesses. I'm talking about larger corporations. And you can work through both, like on an individual level, like working with a senior vice president or an executive, or you can work programmatically
Mhm.
by going in and designing a strategic program for, say, for their high potential people. So I mean, and there are different ways that you can do this, and the goal has always been to ensure that the company, the senior team of the company knows what's really going on
Mhm.
in the rank and file, because oftentimes they're in the upper echelons of the offices looking out over the rivers,
Mhm.
and the people that are in the trenches are not really communicating. I mean, they may communicate with their managers, but their managers may not be communicating upwards. So, some of the work that I do, includes something like three-tier team building
Mhm.
that ensures that, in my language, you have the manager once removed, you have a manager, and then you have the employee, that there's a cascading that
Mhm.
goes down, but it also goes up. as well. So it's not that it's one directional. It's again both end. So you ideally that would come down from the top and be cascading down in threes to the lowest level in the organization. And also it would kind of, it's not cascading because cascading is directional, but you'd have to go up to allow for the information to get from the bottom to the top.
Hmm.
So, we do one-on-one coaching, but we do the programmatic work. And we would go into a company and interview and find out where there are what I call invisible fractures
Mhm.
in the organizational structure. So oftentimes, you'll hear companies say, "Oh, they're going to." I just wrote actually a newsletter on this a few months ago. That people were they're going to let go of 10,000 employees, or they're going to let go of 20% of their employees, and sometimes by doing that or just saying that and then acting upon it, they remove a whole layer of important work without knowing it.
Yeah.
And so you then have people that are at the higher levels that are being pulled down and not necessarily doing the strategic work
Mm.
or the organizational work across the multifaceted departments that a company might have.
Mm.
So we do that analysis. We go in and we analyze and show them where there is what I call these fractures,
Mhm.
and then show them also how they can heal that,
Yeah.
how they can correct that. What also shows up in these analyses, though, and a lot of companies don't when if you do a pilot, they get upset with this kind of information because it shows where the disparity is between salaries.
Mhm.
Org charts today are really just showing salaries.
Mm.
They're not really showing the workflow, how work gets done. And so we talk a lot about managerial authority and accountabilities,
Mm.
and I love it. I mean, I'm passionate about it, so you can tell.
Oh yeah, no, I could tell, and I've been around you long enough to know your passion for yourself, for what you're doing with your clients, and really how you're helping them.
Mhm.
And that being said, I mean, if somebody's watching this or listening to this, first off, it's been great having you on the show. But how do people connect? How do they follow up? And how do they get more information?
So you can call me I have an office line, an old-fashioned office line, 212-685-0870. My website is bovaenterprises.com. I'm on LinkedIn as I think it's Rosemary Bova.
Hmm.
And you could text me at 917-653-7941. I mean, and I guess shortly you can get to me through Mission Matters, I would assume.
Oh yeah, so we'll have you all over our website real soon once that show gets launched. So I'm excited about
Yeah.
this. And well, I just have to say, and we'll put all these links in the show notes, by the way, to your website,
Great.
all that other good stuff, so that our audience can just click on the links and head right on over. And speaking of the audience, if this is your first time with Mission Matters or engaging in an episode or watching the show, we're all about bringing on business owners, entrepreneurs, and executives and experts, and having them share their mission, the reason behind their mission, really what gets them excited in the morning and gets them, fired up to get out of bed and to make a difference in the marketplace. If that's the type of content that sounds interesting or fun or exciting to you, we welcome you. Hit that subscribe button, because we have many more mission-based individuals coming up on the line, and we don't want you to miss a thing there. And Rosemary, I just want to say, really, it's been a pleasure working on this book with you. I can't wait to this next chapter where we get into the podcast side of the content you're going to put out, and just thrilled to continue working with you. So thank you again for coming back on the show.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.